Greetings all. We've got a phenomenal guest today. Tommy Campbell is a drummer extraordinaire who has performed with Dizzy Gillespie, Sonny Rollins, Jimmy Smith, the Mingus Big Band, and many other world-class musicians. He also leads the Vocalize Ensemble, which presents an innovative blend of percussion and vocals. In our conversation, Tommy shares his perspective on the necessity of improvisation in daily life and music. He tells us about his time with Dizzy Gillespie, how music has played a healing role in his life, and also how he developed his world-famous porkestra, which is this delightful polyrhythmic puppet show of sorts that he performs with squeaky toys. If you ever have a chance to see him doing that, I can just about guarantee it'll bring a smile to your heart. Tommy is a wonderful storyteller and a lovely person. Here is our conversation with Tommy Campbell.
Body, brain, and world become equal partners in the construction of thought, experience, and action.
If you describe carefully the behavior of any organism, you cannot do so without at the same time describing the behavior of the environment.
Where are you from originally?
Just outside Philadelphia.
And now you're in New York.
I live in Weehawken, New Jersey now, which is right next to New York. I'm right next to the Hudson River. I'm 5 minutes from New York City. I'm back and forth all the time, at different hours of the day.
To keep up with you, you can find you at Smalls, find you at Blue Note, find you at all the ripe locations.
Yeah.
You've just had a really rich life and career in music.
Yeah.
There's some really interesting insights that are coming out of the research that are revealing what's happening in the brain when you or someone like you, an improviser, is entering in and out of different states of mind, you could say. And there seem to be some really striking relationships between what's happening in the brain during improvisation and what happens during dreaming, and also during certain kinds of psychedelic states that are occasioned by psilocybin and the like, these kinds of classical psychedelics. So the neuroimaging is now helping us to understand the neurobiology of consciousness and look at the connections across these different states of mind in really interesting ways. And meditation plays into it as well. Yeah, so that's the background.
That's a heavy background, man. I'm just going along with.
I'm trying to learn this too. I've got experience as a neuroscientist and also experience as a musician. So I understand what you're doing, at least with appreciation. And I understand quite a bit of the neuroscience. I'm trying to connect these worlds, basically.
Okay.
You don't need to know neuroscience to play polyrhythms, clearly.
Okay.
You're managing just fine.
Yeah, I was just practicing some polyrhythms. Yep. Okay. But yeah, I just want you just lead me on. I just want to help, Bradley. I just want to help. I'll never forget how we hit it off, and we definitely vibed together and enjoyed each other's company.
So I want to ask you about your experience of improvisation, how it has evolved over time and developed. I'll be asking about how you help other people discover improvisation. I know you're a wonderful and experienced educator.
Okay.
To start off, may I ask if you could just tell us kind of your biography, how you got to where you are?
My upbringing, thank goodness, my mom and dad, emphasis on my mom, but my dad, he moved out when I was 10. So my mom became my dad and my mom. My uncle is Jimmy Smith, the jazz organist. So I was raised on him without even knowing who he really was. My dad was in the Navy before I was born, and then he was like a lounge singer, let's say. He did the hotel circuits, and he did play organ, but not the Hammond B3. He played like a Hammond M3, and he was really more of a singer, I think, than an organist. But he did play organ, and he repaired organs. He repaired my Uncle Jimmy's organ many times. So, what else? My mom was a career, one of the few Black career women in our community neighborhood. She was a courthouse clerk. She was an artist. She typed 123 or 24 words a minute on one of those, old typewriters. She had shorthand, note hand. She was an artist, so she did a lot of advertisements for events. Certain events, they would ask her to make a poster. And my sister was very smart, but 1 year younger than me. Very smart, and so smart. I give you one quick example. One day, my mother came to pick me and my sister up from school. I was in the 3rd grade. She was in the 2nd grade. My sister Karen. We get in the back of get in the back seat. We're driving home. My mom turns around as she's driving. Hi, Tommy and Karen. How was school today? Fine, Mom. And she said, Tommy, did you learn anything new today? And I was ready for her. I was ready for her with the biggest word that I could spell at the time, and that was something. And I spelled it out for her. SOMETHING. And of course, her being a teacher and my mother, she was so supportive. Oh, Tommy, that's great, son. That's a big word for you. You're really getting the hang of this spelling. That's excellent. Keep it up, son. And what about you, Karen? Did you learn anything new today? Yeah, Mommy, I learned a new word. And what word is that? Anti-disestablishmentarianism. And she spelled it out as if she was singing a song. And my mom had to pull the car over, and pull out the dictionary under the seat of the car, Okay, hold on, Karen. Let me check it. Okay. All right, spell it again. My mom had the money to get me in Berkeley. My Uncle Jimmy had the credibility, and so they were curious that Jimmy Smith's nephew. So I was accepted into Berkeley, as long as my mom paid for it, and she borrowed money from the bank and so forth. And but my sister, on the other hand, she got a full scholarship to Boston College, and after her first year, IBM found her and picked her up and had her working at IBM after school, for 3 years. And then she worked another 20 years at IBM, multi-millionaire, blah, blah, blah. 2 kids and the whole, yeah. So we were quite the opposite, but, but we kind of needed each other. She helped me see into what she is about, and I guess I helped her see into what I was about. So
I have no doubt.
She passed away of breast cancer when she was 44.
Oh no.
My mother passed away. My father passed away at 56, and my mother passed away at 67, maybe 68. So my Uncle Jimmy, on the other hand, who's a jazz musician completely. Oh, he lived to be 80, So so there's a little background, I guess. I probably veered off course of your question, but
it's great to get a sense of where you're coming from and the support, and also that you kind of felt out where your strengths were early on, with the help of your sister, kind of seeing how you balance. And I have no doubt that you are the coolest and greatest big brother of all time.
I always ask her up and
Yeah. And so that kind of thrust you, and then through Berkeley, obviously it was just off to the races from there for you.
off to the races. Quick story about Berkeley, and that is that, okay, you know how I felt about school. So when I was accepted into Berkeley, I was auditioned by Gary Burton. When I got accepted into Berkeley, I was looking. They said, "Well, what course do you want to take?" So they handed me the brochure, and I wasn't looking at the names of the courses. I was looking at the description of the courses to make sure. Okay, oh no, that has math in it. Not doing that. Okay, oh, that has history, science, and nope, not doing that. That has math in it and English. Nope. This. Oh, how to play your instrument and just be good. That one. And I looked up, and it was called Instrumental Performance Diploma. That's it. But I just wanted to play drums. Yeah. So I did 4 years at Berkeley. About 3 months before I was supposed to graduate, finally. My mom's at home. She's happy, I'm going to graduate with a diploma. She knew the difference between a diploma and a degree. I knew, but I really didn't care. I really didn't at that time. And even now, but that's 40 years later. So about 3 months before I'm supposed to graduate, and I already have a lot of local gigs. Now I'm playing with half of my teachers, stuff. And Berkeley called me up to the administration office, and they said, "Tommy, we just realized that you're 6 credits short, and you're not going to be able to graduate. We're going to have you come back for one more semester. Don't worry, we'll get your mom to borrow more money from us and from the bank. We'll figure out the finances." And I was stunned. And so I'm walking home, and I'm thinking, I got to call mom and tell her I'm not going to graduate. But I knew if I called her that night, she wouldn't be able to sleep. So I said, I'll wait until the next day. And the next day, Dizzy Gillespie called me out of the blue and said, "Tommy, you want to join the band? We're going to Brazil in a week." That's it.
That was not a hard decision, I imagine.
Nope.
You had great news to share with your mom that day.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yep. And later, I went back to 10 years later. I went back to teach at Berkeley. They asked me to teach there. So I was a student from 75 to 79. I was a teacher from 85 to 89.
Okay, so you've had a good 8 years with Berkeley in various capacities.
Mm-hmm. And the president of Berkeley, who expanded it 30 times from when it was when I was a student, the president of Berkeley, Roger Brown, he was my former drum student. It happened. It so happened that he was actually a fundraising specialist who was a drummer, and he wanted drum lessons from me. So he would come to take drum lessons from me, and he took several, maybe for a half a year or something. He took drum lessons from me, and then later I look around, and he's the president of Berkeley College.
Wow!
So that was wild. Like, man, what? We were just working on paradiddles, man. How'd you?
Yeah,
that's kind of funny.
He parlayed paradiddles into a president's role at the university. That's amazing. How you never know what's going to happen to the person across the way, sitting across from you. Indeed. Yeah. Beautiful story. And so I guess you've been improvising from the beginning as part of your music practice. But how did that evolve as you worked with Dizzy Gillespie and later so many other, your uncle, I guess, to start with, and then so many luminary figures.
My uncle, he was my uncle until I got into Berkeley, and one of my first classes was called Listening and Analysis. And they said, today we're gonna analyze Duke Ellington, maybe Stan Getz, and Jimmy Smith. And I'm sitting back going, okay, I've heard of at least two of them. And then he started, and then eventually he got to Uncle Jimmy, who was Jimmy Smith to them, and I said, man, that sounds like my uncle. Yeah, like that. I didn't make the connection at all.
Yeah.
And so I was shocked, that was the same person. But Dizzy hired me because I could play funk. That's why he hired me. And when I was in my second or third year at Berkeley, he came. He drove with his friend, because he didn't drive well at all. He had a friend drive him up to Boston, and they came to see a group that was called TCB, the Tommy Campbell Band, featuring Kevin Eubanks. Yeah, he's a very, like one of my best friends. Just spoke to him yesterday, and that band was like a mixture of funk, like Kool and the Gang, Sly and the Family Stone, Parliament Funkadelic, maybe and R&B, Motown, what have you, funk, Earth, Wind and Fire, and the Mahavishnu Orchestra, the fusion. And Kevin was a huge Mahavishnu Orchestra fan, and we played all Mahavishnu Orchestra songs basically. So you have odd meters, and you're improvising on top of the odd meters, So a lot of my improvisation comes from there, technically. And then of course playing with Dizzy Gillespie, I got the jazz improvisation going. So I don't know really exactly where it started, my improvisation, because to me, even when we were even as a teenager, when we were copying songs that we liked from our favorite groups, there was improvisation in those songs, a little short guitar solo or sax solo or something. And we weren't good enough to play that solo exactly, so we had to improvise it, try to get close to it, whatnot. So that's probably how some of it started on a amateur level, and the professional level was with Kevin and our Mahavishnu Orchestra copy cover band, and Dizzy came up and he heard our band. He listened to both sets, and then my first time sitting in with Dizzy Gillespie, I'm in my second year at Berkeley, and I'm all ready to play Salt Peanuts and Corn Alma and Burke's Works and Kush and Manteca, and Night in Tunisia. And by the third set, they were tired of playing jazz. And when they said, okay, we're going to bring the little Tommy Campbell up there. And we played all funk, Kool and the Gang, funky stuff, James Brown, Buddy Miles, Down by the River. We didn't play any jazz at all. Yeah, I was all ready to play my brushes and stuff. And we played all funk. And afterwards, Dizzy took me in the back in the dressing room, and he talked to me, So, what are you doing up here in Boston? Well, I'm at Berkeley. Oh, really? When do you graduate? I said, well, I couldn't even think that far ahead. And I said, well, if everything goes right, I guess in 2 years. So, but now I wanted to just get that out of the way, because I've come to a conclusion now, presently. In New York City, man, if you can't improvise, you better get the hell out of here, man. I ain't lying. Every rule, every regulation, there's so many, changes, last minute changes in the subway and streets and the directions and people. And, it's crazy. if you can't improvise in New York, get out. You won't make it. 2 weeks. You won't make it because all the schedules are written out supposedly. But when you get to, let's say the subway, for example, you know, the A train, the B, the C, then the F, the G, and it's supposed to run this way and that way. But man, you don't really know until the train pulls into the station, man. And when the train pulls into the station, there could be an announcement, ladies and gentlemen, the F line, the F train, this is the F train, but we're running on the A line. And it's going to stop at 61st Street, and there'll be no more service. So you'll have to either, take the C train, walk to another avenue and get on but there's a bus that will take you to another, it's crazy.
So you're saying improvisation is a part of life.
In Midtown, there's so many electronic vehicles, bikes, skateboards, scooters, mopeds, city bikes, we didn't even get to cars yet. You know what I mean? It's nuts, right? 3-wheelers, 3.5-wheelers, 2-wheelers, 1-wheelers, and they're going all, 8th Avenue goes up, 7th Avenue goes down, 9th Avenue goes down, 10th Avenue goes up. But these bicycles and scooters, they're like, man, we're just bicycles. We can go anyway. 8 months ago, I was coming home from a rehearsal with Nat Adderley Jr. I'm coming home. I'm walking up 8th Avenue. I get to 37th Street. I'm about to cross, but I'm looking both ways. And here comes this bicycle messenger guy going like 22 miles an hour because there was 5 witnesses who saw this. And he's dodging off the sidewalk in between people, back onto the street, into the bike lane, back on the sidewalk, and, and he hits me at 22 miles an hour.
Oh.
We all fly up in the air. I hit the ground first. The bicycle falls on me, and he falls on the bike. He immediately gets up, grabs his bicycle, and takes off. It took me 30 minutes to get off the ground. There was 5 people, 5 good Samaritans standing over me saying, hey, man, you okay? We'll call EMS, blah, 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 blah. I'm moaning. I was on the ground for 30 minutes.
That is terrible.
EMS people came. To make a long story short, EMS people came. They gave me the most basic checkup that you ever want to see in your life. It was. I said, you want to check the area where the pain is coming from? He said, oh, no, we can't do that.
Okay.
So I said, bye-bye. And I crawled home and moaned myself home, literally. When I got home, it took me 45 minutes just to get my clothes off when I got home. The next day, I supposedly had a gig from the rehearsal that I did the day before. I had a gig where, in this case, kind of unusual. It's not completely unusual. I get paid in advance sometimes. But this gig, it was a over average paying gig. It was a good paying gig, more than good. And the leader, Nat Adderley Jr., paid me in full at the rehearsal. And it paid so well that I hired a drum roadie to do the gig, to do all my drum tech stuff. So I got 2 people now that if I don't do this gig, he's going to have a drummer that doesn't know the music, and the roadie is going to be out of a gig that he, set aside time for. So I said, well, instead of going to the hospital like most smart people would do, I did the gig. I already got paid for it. And like I said, I would have been leaving 2 parties so I did the gig. I told my roadie, man, you're going to have to do everything, like, more than normal, everything. And he did. I took 3 Advil and took a couple of hits of weed, two or three hits of weed, and I played with one hand, with my elbow pinned to my ribs where it was hurting. And I did the gig. The next day, my great friend, Ray Anderson, trombonist, took me to the hospital. We get to the hospital, and we did a CAT scan to find out that I had 3 broken ribs and a punctured lung.
Tommy.
Yeah, 10% puncture. Yeah, 10% though, but it was still a hole in my lung, and 3 broken ribs. They had me stay overnight. They had me spend the night. They said, because we told them I was booked to do a tour with Ray Anderson in 5 days later. I was booked to do a European tour. And I really wanted to do it. Not only did it pay well, but first and foremost, it was Ray Anderson, one of my best friends, favorite people, one of my absolute favorite bands to play with. And we were looking forward to this tour for like over a half a year easily. Couldn't wait for it to happen. So now we're trying to figure out, should we and can I do this tour? We asked the doctors. The doctor said, "Look, we'll keep you overnight. If the hole in the lungs starts to get smaller, you can go. If it stays the same or gets bigger, you can't go." Stayed overnight. The hole got smaller the next day. The doctor said, "Well, the hole is almost closed. If you want to go," he said, "I wouldn't do it, but if you want to go, you could do it." So I went. We did, and 5 days later, I went on a European tour. 17 concerts in 17 days in 17 different cities. Eating at all the finest restaurants in each city. You know, Berlin, Biel, Geneva, Hamburg. 17 gigs. The first couple of days, I'm moaning every. If I was just even breathe a sneeze, I would 3 broken ribs, and my band members, they carried me through. They did everything but carry me. They put on my coat, they opened the door, they carried my luggage, and they also made fun of me because every time a little shake, they go, oh, because that's what I'm doing, So everybody's having this moaning. So, but each day, because of the music, I was forced to play music that I love and what I love to do. And each day, I got a little bit better each day. A little bit better. Now I'm starting to play with both arms down, both hands. Now I'm starting to move a little bit, day 10, maybe starting to move a little to the side, day 12. By the end of the tour, the 17th gig, I was 80%. I was 80% jumping up and down.
That's amazing.
Jumping up and down. The best treatment, better than staying in the hospital, where they would have you hooked on some pain, better than staying at home by myself, where I got, no assistance at all. I was on the road, traveling, doing what I love to do. And by the end of that tour, I was 80%.
Great story.
The best medicine. So I know I knew I threw you off track
No.
talking about
That's
improvisation.
fantastic.
But still, I had to improvise injured, I did the first gig like this, with one hand, and 2 feet. I had to improvise what I normally do. Couldn't do it.
You had to find a way, a new way.
So that started with being in New York City. More and more, man, if you can't improvise, man, from the music stage right on out to being home. If you can't improvise, your neighbor something, it's a street, road closed, red smoke coming in from Canada. You know what I mean? Yeah, man.
That's absolutely apt, because this ultimately it's a practice that you seem to be doing. We're always improvising continually, but you.
Yeah. I say this in New York, but somebody who lives in Deadwood, South Dakota, they might say we have to improvise too, because there might be a deer one day. The next day there's a bear. The next day there's
exactly
whatever, alligator. You know what I mean?
That's a beautiful story.
That's for sure.
And also, it's points to the pain relieving properties and healing properties of music. We will never know because we couldn't run a controlled study with you sitting and just waiting for the healing and you traveling and touring. But I suspect that moving and hearing the music, it has all of these positive effects on stress reduction, pain reduction.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. When Dizzy Gillespie when he was in the hospital, his last time he came out of the hospital, he was very underweight, very thin. His cheeks were sagging, as soon as he got home, he called his guitar player and called me, and he said, "Come over, we're playing," and he started to put his mouthpiece on his lips and try to get his sound back. And then he just started trying to play again. It's just like, immediately came home, hugged his wife, kissed his wife, and called us, and he started playing immediately. And it wasn't until then he started to look like himself after a couple of days, and maybe a week or two later he was doing his gig again. He was doing his first gig, and about 3 months after that he passed away. But each day he got better and better and better. But it was time. I forgot how old he was when he passed away, but it was his time. But he was. He was going to play until the end, like most musicians, most artists, most people who do what they love to do. They want, it not only, it helps them live, makes them happy, but it becomes more physical and mental.
And the mental side. And it's beautiful.
Yeah. I know I'm rambling, Bradley, so reel me in. Come back, Tommy.
You were one of the first calls that he looked at to you as a musical rehabilitation partner, for example. But that's really something.
Oh yeah, absolutely. When I saw Dizzy, that made me. I mean, I am 100% convinced that what's going to keep me alive and happy and as healthy as I can be is playing my drums and playing gigs that I love playing, that gigs that I would do for free. That's my key. When musicians ask me, "Hey Tommy, where you working? Where you working tonight?" Man, I answer the question, but man, I don't want to call that work. What I just got finished doing before you called, that's working. I was practicing, doing my exercise up and down, same thing. Learning this song, actually learning 2 bars in a song called Humpty Dumpty, written by Chick Corea. For me only, that's what I call work. That's a personal. Other people, they have families and kids to raise, and I understand they're going to work, they're going to play their horn so they can make money and also be happy. I get it, it's a dual. But for me, and I do gigs that I do gigs that the only reason why I'm doing is because it's paying $250 or whatever, and I try to make the best of it and get the hell out of there, But the gigs that I'm fortunate because I don't do many gigs like that. Most of the gigs I do, I would do it for free.
So you just spent your practice routine, your time working on 2 bars of that Chick Corea song.
Yep.
Because this gives us some insight on what's involved in developing the patience, the focus, and giving time to small bits of material. Is that the case? Is that what you were doing? Is that how you approach your practice?
Yes. It can be anywhere from 1 note to a few notes, 10 notes, 2 bars, a section. It could be a different meter. Let's say a song's in 4/4, now it's in 5/4. It could be instrumentation. It could be the instruments that I'm playing. Like I practice on that, but I could be playing half of that, a quarter of that, an eighth of that. I enjoy doing gigs with just a snare drum and a cymbal, if they let me. And sometimes they let me. Yeah, but boy, it's challenging because they want you to sound like you have the full set. But I've seen some, and and it forces you to get more out of one sound source. Especially on the spot, in front of people, in front of your peers who look up to you and, expect to hear a certain quality of sound coming from you. So, yeah, it's great when it works. Sometimes it doesn't, though. And then like, oh, man, I'll never play with just a snare drum and a cymbal again, on this gig. Yeah. So
another thing you touched on is kind of the joy music. You're playing; it's not work in your mind. And I know that you bring joy to other people.
It's really not
a lot of it, and I've seen it. You bring great humor and joy to your playing, and people just love that. And I wanted to ask you about one thing for which you are world famous, the squeaky toys that you bring on stage. How you just out of curiosity,
the porkestra.
How did you come up with that? Like, what was the creative moment of discovery, and then how did you develop this, just as kind of a case study of your creative process?
I was buying I went to the dollar store. I was living in Tokyo at the time, and their dollar store is called the Hyakuen shop. Hyaku is 100 and yen, of course. Hyakuen shop. I go in there trying to save some money. My kid, he's only about 2 years old, so let me buy some nice, easy, simple things for him. I bought a few toys, and I'm walking into the cashier, and one of them fell on the floor on my way there, and simultaneously I stepped on it, and it made a sound that made me go, "Hey, man!" That almost sounded like a Hermeto Pascual, a Brazilian cuica or something. And I said, "Man, I'm going to try this on my gig tonight, man." So I took that. It was a little alligator. Little plastic alligator. And so I kept that, gave my son the other toys, kept that, took it to my gig. And the alligator was, it's thin. It's not like big and round. It's thin. And I looked over at my hi-hat cymbals, and I said, "Man, you put that in there. Just put it in there, and okay." And yeah. And I start, and I play this little Brazilian sorto groove, and I got this little almost fake sounding cuica, sound, and it kind of went together. And the band members, that's my first audience. The band members, they liked it. The audience liked it, and they, of course, they were giggling and stuff. There's the alligator now in my hi-hat, The next night that I played in that club, one of the customers who was there the night before brought me a pig. Now everybody's in the they're in the zone, and they brought me a pig, and it made a sound and everything. I said, "Okay, let me see what I can do with it," and that's really how it happened. The alligator first, and then the pig, and every time I perform, this is like 20 years ago when it happened. So I say every couple of months, several months, somebody gives me a present, an animal, a duck, a frog, and they all make some kind of little noise. and then along with that, then now I'm looking in pet stores because they're dog toys. So now I'm looking in pet stores and I'm testing the sound, and I get a few. I was in Switzerland. I bought a duck in Switzerland. It was $62.
That's an investment. That's
a dog toy. It was 60 in Switzerland,
right.
in Geneva. I was like, what? For this? Wait, really? $62. And I bought another that was somewhere around $40. But that's on the high end. Most of them range from about $10 to $20, And so now when I travel, I go to pet stores, and I got an animal hospital in there. Some of them are broken. One have one wing, one leg. A lot of them blow out their throat because their throat is gone, So, but I play and I do this, as you know. I mean, kids love it. I do this elementary schools. They just freak, But grown-ups they freak just as much, in clubs.
And it just connects. It's just sound. You bring it to the elements because you in your work you focus on the primal, the voice, through your work, the vocalize ensemble and your drum voice, and you bring in these toys that you just show. We're surrounded by sound. Everything is an instrument. Starting with the way you move, your voice.
Yeah, it really is.
You're making percussion sounds when you take a footstep. It's the whole world is your instrument. Right. So it's such a beautiful kind of metaphor and an experience to see you do that.
But a lot of people are realizing that now, especially like with things like the iPhone. I mean, it's, now you can become a musician with just a phone. Whether or not you're educated or studied or how much of a musician you are, that's another story. But to make music, your own music, all you need is a phone. And like you said, you need that footsteps and whatnot. But to actually, make a living or make money or whatever, start a band, all you need is a phone. Hey, I'm starting a band. Well, what do you sound like? Well, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, social media, boom, 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 bang. How many hits, how many followers?
So things are changing over time, and it's interesting to see how that happens. But we're always going to need the power of rhythm, and it's good to know you're there to provide that.
Yeah.
You're unique and indispensable. You're a warehouse of stories, and you're a storyteller. Which is what musicians can be sometimes, and when we're lucky.
I got some stories, Bradley. Boy, do I have some stories, man.
I want to hear all of them, but I wanted to ask also about. So you lived in Japan for years, and obviously you've traveled everywhere. You mentioned Brazil, obviously Russia, and throughout Europe, North America, onward. Do you feel different in places when you were playing in Japan and improvising indeed, as is part and parcel to what you do, versus being in New York or being in South America? Do you feel yourself change? How does your experience change with place?
Well, it's a give and take. It changes you. It'll change you first. You'll start to change, which will make which will go in that direction, or it'll start to change you, and you have to go in that direction, For example, the song "Giant Steps."
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Right. Well, in Japan, some old jazz musician when I was with Dizzy or somebody or Sonny. They told me, we're talking shop, probably on the road in a bus or something on a plane. And, there's a lot of little jazz tricks, in music, within the music, that relate to real life, For example, Giant Steps, the song has 26 melody notes. There's also 26 letters in the alphabet. So why not sing the alphabet on Giant Steps? So I kind of brought that to the attention of my Japanese students, and they want to learn English anyway. Not to mention that wanting to learn jazz. So A, B, C, D, E, rather than A, B, C, D, E, F, G. You know, when you sing it that way, it holds, some of the letters hold the H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V. But with Giant Steps, it's different notes are emphasized, you know? And a lot of Americans who know Giant Steps, they get tongue twisted. See, including myself when I first tried it. So it's a very tricky and fun thing if you know somebody who knows jazz or Giant Steps and ask them to sing the alphabet on Giant Steps. It's a little tongue twister, you know, the head, the brain, you know, you're used to holding out that G and you don't when you're singing Giant Steps. But it works throughout the whole song. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z.
Okay, I know what I'm going to be doing later. That is...
Yeah, man. It's really fun. It's a little fun thing for you know, your musician friends. It's a ball. So some people will get it right away, but more than half will not. More than half, they'll stumble a little bit and try to, I'm not going to, you know, and you got to put both things together. So it's a lot of fun. But so in Japan, they went nuts, the jazz musicians there. Oh my gosh. I can learn my ABCs, the R's and the L's, especially, you know, on Giant Steps. Man, that's better than the classroom, you know. So because of things,
so you found a way to connect with people through music, yeah.
Man, with that and my vocalized band, in Japan I had more vocal students than I did drum students, and I'm supposed to be a world-class drummer. But man, after that, I had double the vocal students who didn't come to me to learn head voice, chest voice, and technique, vocal technique. I know nothing about that, but improvising, I know a lot about. You know, so they would come to me. I had a lot of vocal students, so that was fun. And in Japan, they love live music so much. In Tokyo alone, there's over 250 live houses before COVID, anyway, that musicians could go and play live music. That's more than New York. More than almost any city. Yeah, just music.
It's amazing. That's in Tokyo.
In Tokyo
alone.
Yeah. The Japanese government, they had over 3,000 concert halls built all over the country for musicians to perform. Musicians, artists, dancers to perform in. The government had over 3,000 of them built. You know, and I don't mean a shack or a YMCA. I mean like a concert hall, you know.
Yeah, it's played an outsized role in, jazz history.
Ron Carter, he did an unbelievable concert with but he did a amazing performance with the symphony orchestra, and he improvised through all. You know, he played the part and then he would sway off of it and solo and you know.
So many interesting things. How you approach teaching, you know, helping vocalists improvise, you know, in different languages, and so on. I've already kept you longer than I said I would.
I enjoy talking about it, music, as much as I love playing it. So,
but I did want to ask if there's anything you're up to now that people can get excited about and interested in. Any albums coming out or concert tours or any? Yeah.
I'm doing a lot of different albums, recordings. My favorite solo album has been re-released on Apple Music. My Heart is called. They re-released it. Tommy Campbell, My Heart, and I'm very, 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 very proud of that record. And 4 of my greatest friends are playing on it, and the chemistry is great. Well, 5 of my favorite people, friends, um, um, playing a lot, with different people. I'm going to do a concert with Randy Brecker and Charles McPherson in Long Island at one of the maybe the Hampton Jazz Festival there. For some crazy reason, I don't get out to the West Coast like I used to. It drives me nuts because 2 of my greatest friends, well, one passed away. But the last time I was in Oakland was at Yoshi's, and that was like 10 years ago.
Come on out. We miss you.
Yoshi's, and we did the Hollywood Bowl. Yeah. I hope to get out there. But go a lot of other places though.
People can find out about you on tommycampbell.com, I think is your website. And you
Right. And my gig schedule, I'm always updating it. I get gigs that are far in advance, gigs that are last minute, and I'm constantly keeping it updated.
Great.
tommycampbell.com/gigs.
We're all going to go check out My Heart. Thank you. So you've touched on a bunch of things about music and health, music and improvisation, and improvisation in life in the context of music, and so on. So it's been perfect and just an absolute pleasure, Tommy. I can't believe it. I'm so happy to connect.
Oh, thank you. It's great to see you, Bradley.